Thursday, we have the NFL draft. I guess a lot of people are excited it's in Philadelphia. I mean, it is what it is. It's not like, I don't know, should we stop the presses with this? Everyone gets very excited that it's in Philly. And then New York's going to want it back soon. So anyway, it is still a good time because, as I said, I think that officially kicks off a new NFL season, if you will. Lloyd Vance does a great job covering the NFL as well as the Eagles, NFL Network Contributor. We haven't spoken a lot over the past several months, but I know he's excited, ready to be back in the saddle, talk a little football. How you been, pal?
Doing great. Let these Philly people have their fun for a couple of days, man.
Hey, it might be the highlight. It might be the highlight for some of the fans. So, all right.
Maybe
all
so.
right. I won't throw some shade on it, my friend. All right, let's get to a couple questions. In your eyes, who is the number one draft pick, but who will, in your eyes, the Cleveland Browns draft? Or who should they draft?
Yeah, well, in my eyes, it's definitely got to be Myles Garrett. He's just a freak of an athlete. Reminds me a lot of Javon Curse when he came out of Florida, and he was just an explosive athlete, guy that get up the field, rush the passer, and could actually drop back in coverage if needed. He is the player that's on the board right now for the Cleveland Browns. They really should take him. It should be a no-brainer for them. The quarterbacks, whether it be Trubisky, Deshaun Watson, any of the other guys, they're just not worthy of that first-round pick, in my opinion. So I think they go Myles Garrett. They start building that defense, and then maybe in the second, third round, they start looking for a quarterback.
Now, they have, because if you look at their first overall pick, and then they have 12 again, so is it possible they go with a quarterback with 12? I've also been hearing maybe a player like Howard, if he's on the board, but you believe they go defense first. Do you think they're more weary of taking a quarterback because they haven't hit on a quarterback in the last 20-something odd years?
It's tough for them. I know Shashi Brown is their new head of football operations there, and he's going to kind of do his own thing. But in looking at past history, even recent history with Johnny Manziel, they want to be very careful in the quarterback that they bring there. I know Mitch Trubisky is from that Cleveland area, so maybe they give him a look, but I just don't know if he's going to be there at number 12. Somebody definitely is going to overreach for a quarterback like they always do, so they'll be cautious and they'll go from there. But if they're smart and they're lucky, maybe Deshaun Watson can fall into their lap. I just think he's a guy that's kind of a winner.
Yeah, and I think that's one of those intangibles, right? We always look at a player on face value and we look at stats, but then you have to look at what this kid's been able to do in championship games over the last 2 years. He doesn't wilt under the bright lights. I mean, he rises to the challenge. Now, I said this during the opening monologue, and I want to get your thoughts on this. I think there's always, I look at the connection, right? You try to connect the dots with certain things, and you have to go back to 2005 with the Green Bay Packers. And the Green Bay Packers turned around and they draft Aaron Rodgers. And you kind of look at the connection at that time, and it was John Dorsey, who was with the Packers. And they grabbed Rodgers. He sat behind Favre, and they say the rest is history. Now he's a GM with Kansas City. Do you think he might take that same approach with Watson, and then you can grab a quarterback for Andy Reid? Because to me, Alex Smith is a solid and serviceable quarterback. He's not going to be around the next 3 to 5 years, maybe 2 to 3, and then you kind of have Watson sit back and get groomed.
Yeah, definitely, Q. The Chiefs are going to get a quarterback of the future. Alex Smith, a guy who's been around for quite some time. A serviceable guy, just put it that way. But they're looking for a guy, Andy Reid can groom him, get him ready for the next level. Now, also, the other quarterback I heard is Davis out of Cal. They like him a lot. He's moving up a lot of draft boards, but I definitely could see them taking a look at Watson if he's there. Of course, they're picking in the 20s range, seeing how they made the playoffs, but didn't go that deep into playoffs. So, they're going to have to wait and see how the board kind of falls to them. Every team has their board created, and they're going to be ready to go in the next couple of days. But definitely Andy Reid is going to get a quarterback of the future. You
have covered a ton of drafts over the last 10, 15 years. We've seen players whose stock has dropped because of off-the-field instances. We've seen stock rise, if you will, because of what they were able to do in the Combine. When you look at some of these players right now and what Peppers is going through, it almost reminds me of Tunsil last year. Look, the bottom line is it's still going to be deemed as a failed drug test. Does this really hurt his stock that much? Or is this a question of how much will a GM and a head coach sit down and say, okay, can we trust this kid going forward and pay him millions of dollars?
Right, and they're going to sit down with him again and kind of get a sense of who this kid is. I know they probably talked to him at the Combine, had him in for visits at the facility because the team gets about 30 visits before the draft. And it is going to hurt his draft value, let's face it, too. He's going to get hit in the pocketbook. That's what happens to these guys. He could be a first round and ends up going in the third round. We've seen guys go undrafted if there's something hanging over their head. Look at Leo Collins a couple of years ago, one of the top picks coming out of LSU. Next thing you know, he's associated with Case, and then he has to sit out the draft, basically, and Dallas gets him an undrafted free agent. So these guys with these drug histories and off-the-field problems, they're going to have to sit and wait. But there will be GMs that will take a chance on them. We've seen that time and time again where guys will take someone even though they may have some red marks against them. Look at Warren Sapp. Tampa Bay, he fell in their lap, and he just went from there.
Oh, look at Dan Marino, right?
Same thing. Another one, yes.
And they turned out to be pretty darn good players in their own right. Christian McCaffrey. Let's talk about the Eagles for a moment. I think if this kid is on the board, I've been preaching to the choir. I've been talking about it for the last several weeks. If he's there at 14, I think the Eagles would be foolish to pass him up. I think what they're looking for from an offensive weapon, a guy that can bail out Carson Wentz, he can do a lot. He's versatile. He's got the agility. He's got the vision. This argument, I read the stats yesterday, Lloyd, the argument that he can't carry the workload. Listen, if an offensive coordinator comes in and they tinker a little bit, it's not like you need to hand the ball off 20 to 25 times to this kid. First of all, he was able to handle the workload in college. The Eagles don't rush as much as people think they do. You look at the numbers last year, but if you can get him 14 to 20, quote, touches, I think without a doubt he's going to automatically impact any offense, and I think it's a great fit for the Eagles.
It is. He's a difference maker. Let's face it, they have not had a running back of high caliber since they let Chidi go. Yes, they had Murray there, but he wasn't a good fit. But McCaffrey, when you talk about the offense that Doug Peterson is running, is an ideal fit, a guy that can catch the ball out of the backfield, he can line up a slot, a variety of positions. And remember what they did with Jamal Charles when Peterson was in Kansas City. So that's what they would do with Christian McCaffrey. Yes, I think he's going to grow. He's going to get a little bigger, put on some size to take the NFL pounding. But I'm with you. I think he can get about 15 to 20 touches a game, whether it's catching the ball or running the football. Very ideal fit for the Eagles. Let's face it, Ryan Matthews, a guy, is probably going to be released really soon. So I think that the Eagles would be smart to grab him. If he's not there, they need to go over receiver. I know they have had some problems in terms of filling that role. They got in free agency, some of the guys, but we'll see with them. And then, of course, corner. They had to find some cornerbacks in this draft.
Yeah, and I think the corners are deep in the draft, too. You can certainly get it in the second or third round. I'm also hearing that Christian might be a great fit for Washington. I know the Giants are high on this kid. I just don't think he'll be on the board when the Giants draft at 23. Washington drafts at 17. I also know they're looking at Howard as well, which kind of makes me scratch my head a little bit when they've got a plethora of tight ends due the Washington Redskins. Now it might be a different fit with the Giants. How about the Dallas Cowboys? The Dallas Cowboys, basically, their secondary has been depleted. Do they go defense? Do they go corners and secondary with the first round?
Yeah, so they have the 28th pick in the draft, the Dallas Cowboys, and it's almost a luxury for them, a 13-3 team that has a great offensive line, pretty set already at quarterback, running back. So as you were saying, their defense needs a lot of work. Secondary leaves Maurice Claiborne in the free agency period, and then their defensive line just has not had that pass rusher since DeMarcus Ware. So I think those are two areas that they're going to go. Maybe they get a guy like a Dory Jackson coming out of USC, a very good cover corner who could help them out. So Dallas is going to try to shore up that defense, and then offensively, they definitely just going to build around Zeke.
When you look at teams like Kansas City, Arizona, Buffalo, they probably looking at quarterbacks. Even the Giants, if Watson's on the board, they're high on this kid as well. They have to start grooming a quarterback to replace Eli Manning. But then you look at the nonsense that's going on in Buffalo, and it seems like the head coach and the GM are not even on the same page. In your experience covering the NFL, that's a tough scenario to be a part of, especially with the draft a couple nights away, because it's almost like everyone's got to play nice, and you have to put your differences aside and do what's best for the franchise.
Yeah, I've definitely been studying it since Sean McDermott, a guy I've known in the past, is there, and he's coming in as a new head coach in January, and he's seeing what's there. Now, Doug Whaley has been there with Pagula, the owners, in the past, but I just don't think he has that ringing endorsement, and I think you may be seeing a change coming soon with Doug Whaley kind of stepping aside. Sean McDermott is there, and he is going to try to build that defense. Let's face it. He's a guy he's a defensive guy in the past with Carolina Panthers. They're going to build that defense up and try to run the football. So look for them to get defense, a running back. And then you talked about the quarterback. He liked Tyrod Taylor a lot, and that was the situation where the GM did not like Taylor, and McDermott told him to bring him back. So I think Taylor will be around, and they got Cardale Jones, but they're going to bring another guy in as well, developmental type.
Two more before I let you get out of here. Do you think there's going to be a lot of movement in the first round? I still think, you look at the Jets, secondary issues, maybe they go secondary number 6. I still think San Francisco, you got a new head coach, you got a first-time GM in Lynch. The Bears as well, they're looking for a potential quarterback. Look, we know their situation, but a lot of people think they might grab Trubisky. Do you think there's going to be a lot of movement?
I think there's going to be a move. There's always, I remember all the years I went up to Radio City Music Hall, we're sitting there and we're just waiting for that team that's either going to make a trade or somebody's going to do a reach. They're going to fall in love with a guy and grab somebody that you're like, man, why did they take him?
Yep.
I remember Mike Williams being taken by the Lions when they had a whole cupboard of receivers. So someone is going to do something like that in this draft. So
I remember the 1 year. Yeah, and look, I remember the one and the one of many, but the 1 year we were up there, you and I, and we were looking at the screen. They already showed Joe Flacco flash across the screen right away, and you and I were like, wait a second, did the Ravens just take this kid out of South Jersey? So you're right. I mean, there's always surprises.
Yeah, there's always these surprises, and it's a fun event for the fans and everything. But in the end, we know, the hit rate is probably about 50% on these players, unfortunately, especially with the quarterbacks. I was just talking to another colleague of mine. Think of the 99 draft. Donovan McNabb's probably the only guy that made it out of that first round. All those quarterbacks taken, whether it was Couch, whether it's Cade McNown, they didn't make it. So, some of these quarterbacks just aren't going to get it done in the NFL.
I got about 20 seconds. Last one for you. Adrian Peterson looks like that's going to be wrapped up with the Saints. Obviously, it's a humbling contract for him. I personally, this is just my opinion, I think it's a horrible signing. I don't see the fit. I don't see the need. They've got Ingram. They're a pass-first, happy offense. But what's your thoughts on AP going to New Orleans?
Yeah, Peterson just needed a landing spot. Let's face it, 32 and almost 12,000 yards on his body. He's a guy that he's just looking for one last opportunity in the NFL. We'll see if Mark Ingram can carry the load. It was a good situation with Sean Payton. He was able to use Deuce McAllister a lot at the end of his career in goal line situations, short yardage. So maybe that's what they'll do with Peterson. But I thought he was going to wait until somebody got hurt and then look for a job. But we'll see how it goes from there.
All right, pal. Enjoy it on Thursday. We'll talk next week and recap it. I always appreciate a couple moments.
All right. Thanks for having me on.
All right. You got it. Lloyd Vance from BigPlayFootball.com, taking it to the house, and a correspondent for the NFL Network. He thinks there's going to be some movement